My dementia brain mother-in-law fought me because I'm having a baby girl. She thinks I've cheated on my husband just because I had a girl. My husband has a name like John William Smith, for the name has been passed down for literally generations. I will also mention, as is important, there has not been a girl born on his side of the family in more than 100 years. There's a huge running joke that the men in his family cannot produce female babies. So fast forward to our wedding day in 2017. I've had a pretty good relationship with my mother-in-law up until this point. Wedding was great. A beautiful ceremony, funny speeches, everything was great. Really. Until it's the end of the night and we are getting ready to go leave to enjoy our honeymoon suite, and she looks me dead in the eye and says, "Now go make us our," insert my husband's name, plus an extra Roman numeral. I nervously laughed and we departed. Well, ladies and gents, I indeed did make a beautiful baby with my husband over those 2 weeks, and who would have thought? A baby girl. Everyone was so shocked when we announced it was a girl, and most of the family denied it up until the moment she was born. That's when the horrible comments started. Whenever my husband isn't around, my mother-in-law and her family members will make snarky comments like, "I wonder where she got that nose." It's definitely not my husband's. For your information, my baby, as beautiful as she is strikingly, obviously my husband's. She genuinely looks more and more like him as the first year has gone by, and even more so approaching 2. Well, as it would happen, we are now expecting our second baby, and, yep, another girl. I begged my husband not to tell my mother-in-law the gender when we found out, as I just wanted to enjoy a bit more of this pregnancy before she ruined it. I had decided to keep the mean comments his mother made to me about our first daughter to myself, as she's old and in poor health, and I felt guilty about potentially ruining their relationship when she probably doesn't have many years left to be around. I figure I'll add here that mother-in-law isn't dying or anything. She's just had extremely poor health her whole life, smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, eats garbage constantly, drinks only Diet Coke, refuses exercise, etc. I literally offered this woman water once after she almost passed out from walking 15 steps, and she gagged and said, "That's disgusting. Water makes me nauseous, get me my Diet Coke." So anyways, he insists on announcing it at our next visit, and holy crap, y'all. As soon as she heard it was another girl, tears welled in her eyes and she started shaking her head back and forth and sobbing. She then started yelling at me, called me a whore, and demanded I get out of her house. My husband immediately stands up and starts yelling at her, asking what her problem is, and that she needs to apologize to me and watch her mouth in front of her grandkids. She says through broken wails, "Not ours, not ours. Those girls are not ours." She's a W word, a S word. My son did not make those girls. I start crying hysterically and pick up my daughter, who is utterly confused as to why daddy is yelling at grandma and mommy is now crying. My mother-in-law then looks at me and starts yelling, "I let you get away with it the first time. I took you in his family. I allowed my son to believe he fathered that brat, but I will not allow it again." My husband is now effing pissed, y'all. Something I should mention here is that while my husband prepared his whole life to have a son, he was thrown on his butt when our daughter was born. He never knew that he could love any girl in the world as much as he loves our daughter. He has made several comments over the past year and a half that he never knew how deep love could go before he held our baby girl. I can 100% assure you that if he had to save me, our daughter, or his mom, he'd save our daughter 10 times. He gets extremely pissed and starts screaming at her that she is out of line and how dare she call his daughter names. He then goes on to say that we are leaving, and until she comes to her senses, she will never see any of us again. She tried to say something more, but he cuts her off and yells at her, "By the way, Mom, I love that little girl more than I ever loved you." As he is shuttling us out the door, I cried and broke down and told my husband all the little comments she and her family have said to me when he's not around while we drive the 2 hours home. He was so angry at them all and has been amazing in comforting me through it. We went NC for a few months and everything seemed to be going great. We blocked her and father-in-law phone numbers and hadn't heard from them except through other relatives over Facebook. We either told them to not attempt to relay messages from mother-in-law or they would be blocked, or ignored them completely. Then, when I was nearing my due date, we decided to be the bigger person and reach out to her and father-in-law and offer them a chance to make things right. She whines and whines that she misses my husband and granddaughter. We agreed to meet for dinner at their house after a few weeks for a proper talk and apology from her. We agreed that our daughter should not be present, so my sister was set to babysit her. We arrive, dinner is served and we are trying to make small talk when my husband is like, "Yeah, Mom, this has all been nice, but we need to talk about what happened and the things you said last time we were here." "I know, and you know that you owe my wife an apology." Mother-in-law then looks at my husband and says, "Yes, do you have the test?" My husband, "What?" Mother-in-law, "The paternity test." I am not apologizing until I'm proven wrong, and we both know I'm right. You cannot be the father, and the fact that you have now apparently made 2 girls is ridiculous. My husband, what the heck is wrong with you? I start to cry and go to get up to grab my things and go to the car. Mother-in-law, "Oh no you don't." She shoots up, rounds the table and grabs my shirt, then proceeds to scream at me, "How dare you try to run away from this? You're a effing whore and you need to own up to this problem." My husband screams at her to get her hands off of me, and starts to make his way towards us. She then decides that I cannot be allowed to leave at any cost with her son, so she slaps me as hard as she can across my face. I push her arm away from me as I let out a scream from the shock of being slapped. My husband then gets in between me and his mom and starts to scream at her. He tells father-in-law to call the cops right now. Father-in-law ignores him and tries to calm mother-in-law down, insisting that we can deal with this. My husband is furious and I'm crying hysterically. He grabs my hand and we are making our way to the door when mother-in-law grabs a snow globe from a shelf and throws it directly at me and it hits me right in the back of my head. It didn't shatter or anything, but it did end up hitting me on the base and cutting my head open. I fell to my knees from the pain, and before my husband can put together what just happened, she is grabbing anything she can find to throw in my direction. I'm on my knees on the ground holding my head with one hand and my belly with the other, being almost 9 months pregnant as a cascade of random items are being thrown at me. My husband is screaming at the top of his lungs for her to stop, and she proceeds to try to get close enough to kick me as hard as she can. Thankfully, she is old and in bad health, so she loses momentum quickly, and as a last resort my husband pushes his mom and she falls back into a shelf by the front door and he rushes me out. I'm crying and freaking out and yelling. She kicked my stomach over and over and he drove me to the hospital. I ended up getting 6 stitches in my head and being monitored in hospital for 4 days because she kicked my belly. The baby ended up being fine, and the hospital demanded we file a police report. We find out that when my husband pushed his mom into the shelf, she ended up breaking 2 fingers and is claiming the excessive force hurt her neck very badly. My father-in-law called an ambulance for her and she claimed that me and my husband assaulted her in her doorway after they refused to let us in for a free dinner. Cops showed up and took our side of the story and compared our own report that we filed once at the hospital. They told us that mother-in-law is demanding to press charges against my husband for assault, while we are pressing charges against her. So then my husband gets arrested but then quickly released after father-in-law is forced to tell the truth, and mother-in-law then gets arrested for my assault. Father-in-law is now begging us to drop the charges as no one was hurt. What? I was effing hurt, and my baby could have been hurt, and that we are being cruel to lock up an elderly woman. He insists that we drop the charges, say it was all a misunderstanding, and he puts mother-in-law in counseling. Thing is, because my injuries were documented in hospital, we literally can't drop the charges even if we were stupid enough to do so. Because it was filed through a hospital, there's no way it can just go away. We are currently at home waiting for baby number 2 to arrive. I am on a strict bed rest order and my husband has taken the week off of work to help pamper me and take care of our daughter. I asked my husband if once baby number 2 arrives, we get paternity tests for both girls to send to his mom in jail. As a huge FU. He thinks it's a hilarious idea and thinks we should also make copies and send them to all the relatives who were entertaining his mom's craziness, along with a written letter saying goodbye, that none of them will ever see us or his daughters again, and that he hopes they're all happy knowing that they've ruined any chance they had to have a relationship with him, or our children ever again. We are so thankful that our baby girl is okay through all of this, and so relieved that we decided against bringing our older daughter to their house that night. We can only imagine what could have happened had she been struck with something. My due date is currently 8 days away and I have an appointment the day of to discuss induction if she hasn't arrived by then, and baby number 1 was a week overdue and I had to be induced last time.